Flowers are blooming and pollen is in the air, which means it's springtime.
Springtime is that transition between winter and summer. And for where you are geographically in Texas, that can mean some really wild weather.
I talked to WTVM meteorologist Tyler Allender to understand why springtime brings about such peculiar weather.
Basically, what fuels that classic spring-like weather, whether it's just the warmer air or it's the severe storms, is kind of the difference between temperature. So the big differences across the state from cold air to warm air and where that clashes is often going to create that severe weather.
One of those severe weather conditions, at least according to those with allergies, is pollen.
One of the main factors of pollen is the weather conditions. And pollen kind of thrives on the warmer temperatures. A lot of times, too, you have those strong winds in the spring, too, as you get those changing weather patterns, that transition time between winter and summer, right in the middle of spring with the two different air masses. That's going to lead to your wind. Wind is caused by temperature differences. Pollen thrives on dry air, warm temperatures, and wind. So when you have all three of those prime ingredients, you're going to get a lot of pollen.
Allender gave some great insight, but I couldn't let him go without asking why Texas weather in particular is so strange. Why in Texas is the weather just so bipolar?
Basically when you have these fronts coming through, depending on how far they make it this time of year, that really dictates a lot about what kind of extreme weather you're going to get. But again, because there's such a huge amount of real estate in Texas, you're going to see that variety. Temperature and wind direction will really not only determine the type of air mass that you see, warm versus cold or hot versus colder, but it's also going to drive the storm. So, for instance, in Houston, you're kind of directed by the flow off the Gulf of Mexico a lot of time. Whereas maybe up toward the panhandle of Texas, you're going to be more likely to get that drier wind coming from the northwest. With that wind coming off the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of times that too can really bring in the moisture that you need for extreme weather. And remember that the warmer air that you have coming off the Gulf of Mexico, warmer air can hold more water vapor, which in turn can lead to flooding and lots of severe storms.
In Huntsville, Evan Williams, Bearkat Student Media.